Good morning, everybody. So we're going to start by reflecting just a little bit on the past year, which has been something else, has it not? And then a little bit about where we're going. So 2020, my goodness, there have been so many things. And has anyone ever read Through the Looking Glass? I might be getting it wrong. This might be an Alice in Wonderland. But you know when with the Cheshire Cat, and Alice asks him where he should go, where she should go, right? And what does the Cheshire Cat respond to Alice? Does anybody know?
Something about depends on where you want to be.
Yeah. So it's like a little quip of, well, if you don't rightly know where you want to go, then it doesn't rightly matter which way you choose to go. And they're at a crossroads, right? So that's the purpose of what vision does in an organization, right? If we don't know where the heck we want to go, then how the heck do we make reasonable decisions about anything? Particularly if it's a difficult decision, particularly if it's a controversial decision or anything along those lines. There has to be guiding stars, values, purpose behind an organization for it to matter at all. There's an author and a speaker who works with Tim Keller up in New York who talks a lot about business, and one of the things he likes to say, his name's Jeff Van Duzer, is that the purpose of business is not to make money. Money or profit is the lifeblood or the fuel of some kind of a purpose or mission in the world. All right? So what is that mission for Drive? This should be somewhat known. You don't have to get it exactly right, but what do we talk about? Why do we exist? Yeah, what is it? To grow extraordinary business leaders, but there's a piece to that at the very end that is so important to me. What is it? With lives worth living. Because could we grow extraordinary business leaders without lives worth living? Could we have lives worth living and not be extraordinary business leaders? Right? But if you put those together, I think there is a core and a heart to that many of us have latched onto, and it has been life-giving and motivating for our personal businesses. Because this is not just about Keller Williams Drive. Keller Williams Drive is a collaborative business, right? It is the platform, it is the fuel, it is the technology, it is the coaching, it is the training, it is the camaraderie, the culture that creates a platform for you to build your vision. How many of you guys have defined a vision statement for your own companies?
I'm redesigning it. I'm in drafting.
I have redrafted vision statements since I started in business. It's almost kind of fun because things change, right? You can't predict 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Like if I tried to predict my vision statement 10 years ago when I was a buyer's agent on Hara Setyan's team, it wouldn't have been that, and it wouldn't have worked today. So it's totally fine. And that would be one piece that I would love for you guys to keep in mind as you work on that. I'm going to challenge all of you that by the time you leave the ALC, you guys should have a personal vision, you should have values, you should have boundaries around your business that fuel it, that help it grow, that protect its heart, that let it go where it's supposed to go and not where it's not. And to do that, one thing I'll encourage you with is a very important coaching principle, which is that it's never about perfection, it is always about the process. It's about your next step. It's about the vision you scratch out on a napkin today for why you're in business, that you're going to refine and reflect on and change, and it's going to be different by December. It's definitely going to be different 5 years from now. But just that action, that one piece, that one step, fuels the next step and the next step and the next step. And if you're always lost in what will be 12 months from now, sometimes it's difficult to even take that first step. And I want to see a bunch of napkins with scribbles on them today. So be empowered, mess stuff up, make mistakes, take an iterative step and be okay with whether it's wonderful or not. Just take a step from where you are to somewhere else. First step in vision whatsoever. So, the vision for a world-class market center, I believe, is that we would grow extraordinary business leaders with lives worth living. What do you guys think? Do you think that'll get us there?
I think we have some already, which is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do we add more? How do we share that with others? How do we encourage and empower one another? All right, so growing extraordinary business leaders is where we want to go. And when we're talking about vision, we're talking about a far sight towards something that could be. It doesn't exist totally yet. It's something that would be good in the world. It's something we want to strive for together, when we want to grow into, what we want to do. It's why we get up in the morning. Now, there are two other components that I would hazard to you are critical for a healthy business. But before we get into that, we're just going to talk about some fun stuff, okay? So, like Jen said, it's not like we just started yesterday. We already have a bunch of awesome business leaders, and we already have a bunch of people with lives worth living. And in doing that and in creating that, I'll just give you a few things of my thoughts of what we accomplished in 2020. So I'll give you some nuts and bolts first. We had a 40% growth in closed units. And remember, this is 2020, guys. Like when the world fell apart and shut down, this is what you guys accomplished. 40% growth in closed units, 48% growth in volume, 33% growth in listing volume, which if you remember from 12 months ago was a target because our listings were significantly lower than our buyers when we were first starting. 6.3% growth in our average sales price across all agents. $11 million in revenue generated by our collective selves. So that fueled the families of everyone associated with Drive was $11 million, $11.2 million in GCI. That's pretty fantastic for a 3-year-old company. $387 million in volume sold. And of that, because we're Keller Williams, it's kind of fun, only $165 million of that was paid on to Drive. The other half was all 100% to our agents. So that's super cool. And then that led to a 44% growth in Drive's revenue and its health. Profit is up 56% with an 18% profit margin, and profit share is up 76%. Because one of the cool things about profit share as it grows and stabilizes in a new company is more of it. There's more, a higher percentage is shared the more profitable the office is. Is that not some cool accomplishments across 2020?
Yes.
All right. Now, a little more subjective things, I guess. We had some big shifts in 2020. We had COVID. Some of you know I had some major personal shifts where I stepped away for a few months, and then we came back in the middle of COVID, and we started making some changes. And in the middle of the year, we started shifting toward an extremely tight drive toward a small team that could function in a very safe, value-driven environment. And in doing that, the whole team, and I love our leadership team, was able to focus in different ways. So for the first time, the recruiting department was able to focus on just recruiting. Anyone ever read a book by Gary called The One Thing? And then our operations department was able to focus on operations, growth, education, better communication. I think we went a little over the top on some of the communication, but we're going to try to pull that back and target it a little. But there were some big changes and a lot of growth fueled through a huge team effort of your leadership staff, and they're pretty awesome. So I was very excited about the last 6 months and the growth of culture and values and team amongst them. And of anything that will lead us into 2021, it is them and you guys carrying that culture and that camaraderie forward. Because when that happens, it's unlike anything you ever experience anywhere. If you've never read Dare to Lead by Brené Brown or Culture Code, they're fantastic treatments about how those, like you may be looking at me thinking like these are like super soft things. Those soft things create massive impact to profitability and reach for an organization. So let me commend them to you they're not soft, they are core and foundational. CES kept us rolling even across the pandemic, which I'm super thankful for. I loved our stress, and I'm excited about how the region will continue to push forward in creating equitable opportunities within Keller Williams. I love that development and particular articulation. I think Keller Williams has always believed that. But pushing that forward in 2020, I was excited that for the first time in 20 years, we added a value to the Y4C2Ts. That's pretty awesome. And I hope our cultural committee and others can help that keep rolling instead of it just being a flash of the pan last year. The coaching program was pretty fun. I think we've revitalized the coaching program in a pretty huge way, largely thanks to the efforts of Dale and Ms. Dotson. I'm really excited about the direction there with some of the core structures. Yes, and Hunter is now working very tightly with that, linking in technology. There's a ton there. What's the roster at for the coaching program now?
Last count, 69.
So when shifts were happening early in the year, it wasn't quite closed down, but it was more or less, it was getting there. There were only a handful of agents in that program. And we've been working for the last 9-10 months to create a program that people wouldn't want to leave. So there's introductory costs to it, and then help from the market center as they begin to grow. And then there's even options for cappers to get coaching should they choose to, as they hit certain metrics and are able to absorb. The market center can actually absorb some of that as you guys hit 3 million and not go backwards because of our capper model. So since you only ever pay in so much, we can actually absorb part of it and still stay completely solvent. So some of that will be rolling out shortly as well. It already has, but we haven't made any big announcements about it. We made some big changes to cap models to make those more competitive. So as you want to grow a team, to create a place where it truly is a platform for your vision. And it's not about taking everything we can from a single agent. It's about creating a platform for you to be able to advance a vision that's good in the world and to do that in a fair way that's a win-win. And I think there are people sitting here today who are already enjoying that, and there's others out there as well, where that's a key value proposition for Keller Williams moving into the future. Because I think Gary and many others see Keller Williams has to grow as a platform to enable and keep empowering single agents with the power of a team. But we think there will also be a major shift toward teams and brands, because those kinds of organizations are what are taking market share very strongly. So it might be something to think about in your own businesses as well. It might be an opportunity for you, growing a team, being on a team, whatever that may look like for you. And I think that's it. So we're going to move back toward values and boundaries to wrap up. So vision, the vision we already had, that we've always had, created that. So now where do we go next? And how do we get there? So there's a series of things that have guided me for a long time. I first started writing these out when I was on Haro's team long ago, of what are the values that drive me in business? What are the boundaries I refuse to cross in business? And if you will link those together, I want you to think of them as 3 different things in business. Not any business. There's plenty of businesses that are just driven by avarice, greed, making the most money. Not every business is driven by values. Frankly, yours doesn't even have to. If this isn't important to you, grow the business on the platform that you design. Be in alignment with Drive and grow what you want. That's what we're here for. But Drive itself has values and boundaries. So a vision is that far sight of where we're going. Values are the way we choose to journey together as we are aiming for that. It is the way we choose to treat each other. It is the way we choose to act toward our clients. It is, in Keller Williams language, we call it culture, right? It's who we choose to be. It's not enough for us to just make a ton of money. We want to make a ton of money and hold our heads high, that we did it in a way that we will always be proud of for the rest of our life, and it was in alignment with our values and who we are. And the last piece that I think every value-driven business should have is a series of boundaries. And those are lines that we refuse to cross. Those are detours we will not take in pursuit of the vision, in pursuit of the mission. We just won't. And even if the detour would make us more money, even if the detour would be easier, we choose to be in alignment with our values. Does that make sense? All right. So some values. Most of you guys have not been, have any of you guys been in Jumpstart in the last few months? Catherine has. You guys have. All right. So one of the things we started doing in the middle of the year in order to start forging alignment with the coaching program, with the new agents, with the staff, building that team, was in Jumpstart, the very first thing anybody hears is mission, vision, and values for Keller Williams, and then mission, vision, and values and boundaries for Keller Williams Drive. So, mission for Keller Williams. Any brave soul know the mission for Keller Williams? Mission for Keller Williams International is to build careers worth having, businesses worth owning, lives worth living, experiences worth giving, and legacies worth leaving. Jen is doing the hand motions.
I knew that one line.
You got it. We also are guided by the Y4C2Ts, the 6 personal perspectives. I like to call them the productivity perspectives because that's what they are. It's like how you would govern an efficient business. And then what we've tried to do is take those and be in complete alignment with them, but then articulate them in what it looks like in Greenville, in our context, in our culture, and who we are. And this is the piece that I'm not sure many of you guys have heard. So a lot of these, wrote many of these toward the beginning of Drive, and it was how I chose to lead our staff and how I would hope that our ALC can operate together. And there's a series of them. I'm going to start with boundaries so that we can end on values. There are 6 boundaries I've been teaching all the new agents since the middle of the year, and all the staff and anyone else who will listen to me for 5 minutes. And they're as follows. And there's a derivative from Mike Bastian and a couple of my coaches working on this early in the year. First off, if we're going to have a strong, protected culture, we will always go to the person who can do something about it. And that is typically, first and foremost, who? I love that answer. So yes. And we'll actually get to that in just a second. So first, yourself. She's cheating. She knows one of the other boundaries. And then who? There you go. The person who you have an issue with, go to the person you can actually solve it with. And then let's say that person totally blows you off and ignores you, then what would you do? Absolutely. Blast it all over Facebook in the most vitriolic way you can think of. That's culture, guys. That's culture. So if we like didn't do that one time, what else could we do? What else could you do? Somebody ignores you, it's really a problem. What would you do next?
Bring in a third party.
Look for somebody that person might respect to bring in. Bring it staff if you have to, and we would try to bring it between the two of you. There's a few of you in this room I've done that with. Go to the person who can do something about it in that order. Next, suggest, don't gossip. One of the most frustrating things as a leader every once in a while is hearing a suggestion way after that suggestion has been ramrodded around the office and in all kinds of ways of like everything that everyone thinks should be done, but no one ever told Diane or no one ever told whomever. That's challenging. So suggest, don't gossip. Talk to the people who can do something about it. The third one, this one's straight from Mike Bastian, be nice. Fourth, that's probably where I got from him. What we do for one, we do for all. So in this past year, I've had to do some very specific negotiations and specific work to retain some agents, and like, I'll give you an example. So one of them came to me and said, hey, I need this special deal in order to stay. And I said, what do you think I said, actually?
Let's talk about this. I mean,
Basically. Let's talk about what's important to you about that. And then in working through that with this individual, and then another individual, the agent's voices coming and suggesting is what created our adoption of some of the regional suggestions around our team cap policies, some of the ways new things are structured around team agents, But at KW Drive, it's not that that person gets it and then somebody else has to have the guts to come at me for them to get it. If it's given to one, it ends up given to all. And it's given in a culture of abundance that makes sense in a win-win capacity. That if we can make it work for the one, we have to figure out how to make it work for all. Does that make sense? Next is the one that Deanna was end running to. We own our fingerprints first and then confront reality. And last, we have each other's back. It's a cooperative industry. We are Keller Williams Drive. You have your team, you have your business, but we are also a big team and we represent certain values and goals in the Market Center. And it's pretty fun to do that together. I'm going to share these really briefly with you. These are some personal boundaries and integrity statements that I began a while back with some business transitions. These are not technically KW Drive's boundaries, but I want to share them with you. And if any of them are helpful to you or you might adopt them into your business, great. Things that I believe we should do as a business. We don't pursue profit as an end in itself. Profit is a means to a mission. We'll not allow our own attitude to jeopardize other families' goals. We will never sacrifice excellence for profit. We will never value things over people. We'll never pursue our individual gain at the expense of the team. We will never encourage values that sacrifice family for business gain. We will never value production numbers over customer service. We will never settle for less than the best it has ever been done. We will not resist the truths of measuring our results. We will not create our own way when models are available. And we will ask, how do we do both when these boundaries are tested? Sure. We only have so much time because Jeff has so much great stuff, but I'd be glad to email him out. So the last thing I want to take a minute on is the values that have begun the gelling of the small team. These are values that began with me learning to lead at THG. They're values that continued into launching Signature Homes and Drive. These are kind of like across the board for me, that if I'm working with a small team, this is how a small team can operate in a way that creates a safe, productive force to be reckoned with. Most of these are derivative from some of the books that I mentioned, from Gary Keller, from Mark Willis, from all the billion people who have poured into me over the last 8 years. And I hope that maybe one or two might serve you in thinking about your business. And before we get to that, there's a statement that I want to make, which is a little bit, you may not agree with, and that's okay. The values for your business are critical. Because I believe that if you can't think of a reason that you would leave your business or shut down your business, you likely don't have values that truly guide it. So these are some of ours that we use to lead Drive. The first one is trust. We depend on God and each other for results. You can unlimit your thinking as much as you want, and you are still a human, and you're still finite, and you still have capacities and boundaries and limits. But as soon as you introduce a function of team and trust, that individual limitation becomes unlimited. I'm sure you've heard a million times, you only have 24 hours in a day, and I always want to kind of smack them gently and say, until you hire your first employee, because then you have 48. Until you start building a team. And suddenly, without driving anyone to the ground, you can build an organization that supports values and helps build opportunities for others that are as big and as unlimited as you ever wanted, but still bounded by values that will drive you forward. Second is mindset. We protect joy in our work community. Now, why the heck would that matter? We are not an amusement park. Why would we protect joy in a work community?
Because joy is different than happiness.
Tell me about that, Jen.
It's internal sense of commitment and peace and overflow. To me, joy is overflow of what's already inside you.
I love that.
It supersedes your circumstances too.
Yeah.
The first formulation of this was we protect fun in the workplace, which is great. You should do that too, all right? However, there's kind of a shallowness to that protecting joy in the workplace, well, the shallowness of protecting fun or happiness or something like that is, in a great team, in a great trusting team, you're not disingenuous. You don't just check everything going on in your life at the door. It's holistic. Everything comes into play. However, you can still make a choice of how you show up with your mindset when it's going to affect others around you. You can still choose that internal motive that's going to impact others, or you can choose to wear whatever crap you're going through on your sleeve. That's a personal choice, right? We choose as a small team to protect joy in our work community. Not in a way that is disingenuous, but in a way that reaches for a deeper core that allows you to support others even when you're having a hard time. And that deeper core also allows them to support you and your mindset and be transparent and free about it. Do you want to add something, Glenn?
To me, joy brings happiness. Happiness is positive energy.
Sure.
Positive energy helps things expand. Negative energy retracts. So the more joy and happiness you have, the more positive energy you have, then it expands inside the market center to others.
I love it. And I have seen that happen. Like my natural bent is not this value. That's why it's really important for me, because I'm just going to put my head down and go to work and say, whatever, I'm going to go get it done. And I've learned that that doesn't serve a lot of people around me. That's kind of how I started beginning to learn it, and then learned that really doesn't serve me either in the end. All right, the next one is bravery. We find, and it's a very particular Keller bravery. There are lots of definitions for it, but we find sure foundations and then fearlessly create. We have models, we have systems, we have tools, we have so many giants who have walked this before us. You are frankly an idiot if you don't learn from them before you start on your own. Stand on their shoulders and you will build something better than you ever could have done on yourself. Nobody succeeds alone. Next one is very dear to my heart, empathy, that we seek to understand before we solve. People are very hesitant to receive input. We guard our hearts. We believe what we believe, and we really don't want people to change it. And what I've found over the years is that the only way that you ever get an audience, the only way that gate ever opens to you, that somebody will let you in enough to actually speak truth, not, like there's tons of people who will speak truth, but they'll speak it in a way that for most people it just bounces off their heart's walls because their defenses are up, their shields are up. There's no true care and candor. And that care and transparency, the empathy component of actually listening, caring, and understanding tends to crack that door open in a way that if there's truth to be spoken, it may be heard and received in a way that somebody has the ability to save face, they have the ability to make a change, they have the ability to take their own destiny into their own hands and actually consider what you're saying instead of just automatically deflecting it. Is huge. It will revolutionize your relationships with your team members and your teammates in Drive. Strength. We start with yes, how, to condition what is possible. I didn't believe this when I started in real estate. I thought all this like Tony Robbins stuff was a bunch of hooey and like that whole vein of like, whatever, I'm a realist. That's for somebody else. And then over the years, I have learned so much about how impactful the way I think about things are, not just in like some magical production of something good because I think positively about it, but in very particularly the way I think. So the old Henry Ford, if you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're going to be right. the way you choose to think, whether you think in a way that conditions what's possible or you think in a way that conditions what we often say is realistic, is going to actually impact your outcomes in a very considerable way. Next is drive. Had to probably get that one in there, right? And that one's just a statement that we pursue profit to propel our purpose. And I've been thinking of actually changing that to, we pursue profit to propel our purposes, because drive reflects not only its own purpose, but every single one of yours. Clarity, we measure what matters. We're not afraid of it. We measure it. Keller Williams forces us to close our trends every single month, where every single month we know how many houses we listed, how many we sold, how many agents we gained, how many agents we lost, our profit margin, all of it is generated every month by the 5th. And it forces us to look at that in a way to maintain a solvent business. And I would encourage any one of you, there was a commitment in the ALC covenant to generate what for your business? Say that louder, Wendy.
The profit and loss.
A profit and loss statement. It's your business. You can choose when, how often, but it's not that expensive to hire a bookkeeper for a few $100s a month to generate a P&L for you and send it by the 10th of the next month so you can review your expenses and categories. There are several national companies that will do it by Keller Williams categories. Chris Arthur's in town. I've trained him for years how to do it by MREA categories if you want someone who can talk to you about it. It will fuel your business as you understand it, because as you measure what matters, you're going to be able to make intelligent decisions and shifts. And the quicker you do it, well, if you only look at your P&L every 6 months and you were doing something really dumb in February, you now have a 4-month mess to clean up instead of 3 weeks. Humility. We regard others' opinions as valuable before our own. That doesn't mean your opinion isn't valuable. I spent years in that hole too, trying to find and almost manage by committee of valuing everyone else's opinion except for mine. Your opinion is valuable as well. It's one of the voices. And if you're in a position of leadership, it's the voice that makes the decision as you consider and value the opinions around you. Dignity. This one is so hard for me as a coach and is so critical as my heart engages with it. This is the only place that I ever see people around me grow. I can be slamming truths against somebody's walls, but the only time that it ever makes a difference is when they open the door to actually hear it. And that happens, and as a coach, it's sometimes very difficult because dignity, the way I've stated it here, is that we strengthen others to rise as far as they choose. Because what frustrated me for so long was I would choose how far somebody should rise. I would have expectations of them that they didn't have of themselves. I would be pouring out energy into a team member or into somebody, and often was able to save that team member and get them back into production. But then you know what would happen in 2 months or 3 months? Right back where they started, because the only thing that had happened was this like outside infusion of energy that got them up for a moment, but they didn't actually want to change. They didn't actually want the same thing. And so as a leader, beginning to learn and unravel that in my heart, that people may not want to always go where I want to go, and that's okay. All I can do is show them a way, show them values that will get us there, and boundaries that will keep us safe, and an integrity to that vision. And if somebody chooses that they want to go a different way, so be it. There are a lot of fish in the sea. And as a business owner, that's been one of the most difficult things for me, as many of you know. I tend to believe the best of people until I absolutely cannot. And I would encourage you, there's good in that optimism, but there's also a lot of good in the realistic endeavor to see where people want to go and to pull back into empathy, hear where they want to go, and help them get there. Be in alignment with them in a way that when it matches, you travel together. And when it doesn't, you don't. And that is okay. And lastly, infinity. That we become one step at a time, and we never settle. So to hearken back all the way to the beginning, all the things I've just told you, and there's a ton, and it's me, I'm Moses, I know, you're only supposed to have 3 core values. Pick the ones that are helpful to you.
Who said that?
Many, many, many people.
In fairness, you did scale that back.
It's true. Catherine and I had a very long flight one time where we took it from like 27 down to 10. So you could thank Catherine that this was not a 4-hour delivery, okay? Going back all the way to the beginning, these kinds of values at different points in my leadership career have been life-giving when I receive them in a productive way. And they've been almost crushing or shaming when I don't receive them in a productive way. So at the beginning, I gave you a statement that coaching and personal growth is always about process, not perfection. So I'm not presenting any of these boundaries, I'm not presenting any of these values as we've arrived, we do these perfectly, or anything along those lines, nor will you as you develop your own. And don't let them drive you crazy. Allow them to be what they are that guide your next step. Allow them to be what they are that keep you from going on a detour that your heart is going to regret. Let them be what they are that when you're not sure what to do next, you can reconnect with a guiding star of creating extraordinary business leaders with lives worth living. It provides clarity, and provides focus, and it provides power. And that, more than anything, is what I trust we can build together. ALC, Drive, and all the rest of them in 2021. Jeff, you're up, man. Thank you, guys.